Welcome back to EPG. I am Greg, your host. Today we're going to start a new series talking about the best arms museums in the world. Like any red-blooded American, I'm a big fan of firearms, swords, spears, shields, basically anything to wage war. And as a historian, war has played a very important part in kind of our genesis as a species, and it has determined more things in history than basically any other kind of force out there. So I'm going to talk about a couple museums that I visited during the course of my travels. And today we're going to talk about the first one, which was when I went to the Armed Forces Museum in Taipei, Taiwan. For those that don't know the history of Taiwan, with being a little diplomatic here, basically it was back like in the early part and the mid part of the 20th century. There were two factions. There was the Red Chinese, led by Mao Zedong, and the White Chinese, led by Chiang Kai-shek. And they were fighting because they wanted to get control of the government there. And I kind of got put on a pause because the Japanese invaded the mainland of China. So they decided to fight the decided to fight the Japanese together, both the Red and the White. And then after the Japanese were defeated, the Civil War started again, and then eventually the White Chinese ended up losing the mainland, and they fled. And they went to Formosa Island, which then they proclaimed was their kind of country in exile, which would be Taiwan. So they have been kind of figured that they would be threatened with an invasion since 1949. And because of that, they are a very well-armed nation, some of which, has arms that come from the United States and Europe and other parts. And so this museum was kind of a celebration of that, culture of readiness. And it was 3 stories. So there's different displays, going through the course of the history of Taiwan. There were guns everywhere, which was great. But one of the things that, kind of stood out to me was when they had a piece of bamboo there that had Chinese characters on it. And there was a display next to it saying that during World War II, there were a group of students that were holding a position from the Japanese. And in a moment of calm, one of the students put out his will and carved it into this piece of bamboo. And after he was killed and the rest of his friends were killed, the Japanese saw it. And they were so taken back by the sentiment in it, because what the student said was that one day he was going to put personally the flag of China on top of Mount Fuji. And the Japanese, being, an honorific society, they cut down the bamboo and they took it back and hid it in their archives. And then eventually it was returned to China many, many years later after the war. Another part of the museum, which was a whole lot of fun, was they set up a firing kind of lane inside the museum. Now, they weren't using live ammo. They outfitted a bunch of M4s with lasers, and it was kind of a way to test your marksmanship. So they set it up, and then you held the gun, and then you shot, and then depending on, how good your rapid-fire shooting was, that would determine your score. So that was a lot of fun. There was also another display about the special forces that they have in Taiwan. And it showed them, it was like a video they had going, showing how badass they were. And, they were riding bikes, through rough terrain, and they, were doing different types of martial arts, flipping each other around and beating each other up. And yeah, so of course, with everything in the news about a possible Chinese invasion of Taiwan, from what I learned at this museum is that it's not going to be as easy as what a lot of the world thinks. So if you have a chance, go to the Armed Forces Museum in Taipei, Taiwan. And thank you very much for your time, and get out there.